wabarakatuh. My viewers, our viewers, welcome to Secangkir Boba. So in today's episode, we will be talking about something very refreshing, but at the same time, very old. Yeah. So Afif?
To understand what are we going to talk about, let's enjoy this video first.
Okay, for me, very interesting video lah, and very short and informative. All the actors are very, how can I say, very talented.
Especially the main character.
Yeah. Main character, very good looking. So regardless of that, I would like to summarize this case. The video that we have watched is not exactly the story of Carlyle versus Carbolic Smoke Company. It's just an illustration, and somehow it's kind of bring the same meaning and story. So basically, Carlyle versus Carbolic Smoke Company is a case that happened during 18,000s, where there's a pandemic happened and much related with the influenza, and it's often referred to as the Asiatic flu or Russian flu. There's a company based in London called Carbolic Smoke Company invented a product called Smoke Ball that claims it might help to encounter the problem of the flu. It is being designed to prevent users contracting influenza or similar illnesses such as epidemic influenza, colds, or any diseases caused by catching a cold. So how did Carbolic Smoke Company advertise the products?
Is it newspaper, right?
Yes. The company advertises their product using newspapers. In the newspaper, Carbolic Smoke Company stated that £100 will be rewarded or paid by them to any person who contracts the increasing epidemic influenza, colds, or any diseases caused by taking colds, after having used the ball 3 times daily for 2 weeks, according to the printed directions supplied with each ball. As the advertisement was being announced in the newspaper, Mrs. Louisa Elizabeth Carlyle, who is the plaintiff, saw the advertisement and decided to go to the chemist in Oxford Street to buy the smoke ball and use it as prescribed in the prescription. She bought 1 smoke ball and used it 3 times daily for nearly 2 months, and at which later date, she got infected with influenza. Consequently, her husband, a solicitor, wrote a letter to Carbolic Smoke Ball Company stating the occurrence that happened to his wife and asking for the £100 promised by the company as advertised. So the matter is brought to the court. I think that's all the story for Carlyle.
So, fun fact everyone, I've actually read about this case. But obviously not yesterday because I have my notes here. And I think I would like to mention about the issues that actually in the case itself. So like after the Carlyle and Carbolic Smoke Ball Company entered the court, like these are some of the arguments. So let's say in the plaintiff side first. So the plaintiff, they argue that the Carbolic Smoke Ball Company advertisement was just a mere strategy for them to nurture their sales, which and that is their only argument. And they also said that there was never really a binding contract between them or between the Carbolic Smoke Ball Company and the public. Because why? Because the wording used in the advertisement was vague. Yeah, so that's what they said. And let's take a look from the defendant side. And the defendant side, Mrs. Carlyle says that the Carbolic Smoke Ball. Did I say defendant just now? No, it's not defendant. It's plaintiff. So from the plaintiff side, Mrs. Carlyle said that the Carbolic Smoke Ball Company has initiated a unilateral offer. Because why? Because it was made for anyone that is willing to perform the action of the contract itself. So you can see, you can look at the advertisement. It says that if you use the Carbolic Smoke Ball for 3 times for 2 weeks, you won't inflict any said diseases. But they also said, but that's actually the offer, the acceptance of the contract. And yeah, but I think if you look at it in terms of the defendant relation to the intention, their intention, you can actually see that the intention was insufficient. Because why? Because it was clearly stated in the newspaper that the 1,000 was already deposited in Alliance Bank Regent Street. So to say that it is just a pure advertisement for sales growth, it's kind of defeat the whole purpose of you depositing 1,000 into the bank lah. So yeah, so that shows their sincereness in the matter. Yeah, so that's for the issue.
Okay, so what's the final say at the court regarding this case?
Right. So ultimately, Mrs. Carla and also Carbolic Smoke Ball Company case held in the favour of the plaintiff. So Mrs. Carla actually won the case, and Carbolic Smoke Ball Company is entitled to give her the £1,000 as promised lah. And they actually make an appeal. The Carbolic Smoke Ball Company, the defendant actually make an appeal, but later was dismissed by the court. Because why? Because even though the court actually acknowledged the vagueness of the language, which is generally just a puff, but however, due to the £1,000 that deposited, that what I've mentioned just now, so that shows their sincerity. So hence the court say no, Mrs. Carla actually wins the case.
So I think we all today have covered so many things. So now we want to know about what is the reasoning for the court's judgment. So there are a few arguments that the defendant has raised. So the first one, I have 4 points actually. The first one is the defendant said that it was a mere puff. So how did they counter that? No matter how you twist it, the people now and then will understand that putting a deposit of £1,000 is a sign of sincerity and seriousness. So the second one, The second one, the defendant said it was a contract to the world. So therefore, there is no addressee. Okay, so that's the first reason actually.
Oh, interesting. How about the second one?
Oh, the second one. The second one, the defendant said it was a contract to the world, but there is no addressee. Therefore, they play it to seem it's a void contract in the first place. But the court said it was an offer to the world. Just now, it was a contract to the world, but now it's an offer to the world. An offer to the world should accept anyone that comes forth and performs the certain conditions.
That's for point number 2.
So what's the third reason?
So the third one, the defendant argued that there was no consideration. Consideration is like a promise, a performance, a promise not to act also, and has value for both the parties, the seller and the buyer. For example, the seller gets the money or the profit, the sale, and then the buyer gets the item that he or she wants. So in this case, Carlyle wants the £100 by performing the certain conditions, and also by the advertisement, the Carbolic Smoke Ball Company wants the sale and confidence from the public. In addition to that, in legal maxim, we learned that liability earns company's gain. So Carlyle's liability was her inconvenience to pay for the smoke ball, go through the instructions, and eventually getting influenza. So she was entitled to get the £100. The reason of the ad was to gain confidence of the public, and with enough confidence will produce sales, and that directly benefits the smoke ball company. So therefore, there is a consideration in the situation.
So like that was the third one, and what's the fourth one?
The last point, Brother QAWIEM. The last point is, now they want to play their last card, in which they said that Mrs. Carlyle did not notify them. But in a unilateral contract, it is not compulsory at all to notify the offerer of accepting the offer. Bowen, which one of the judges, gave an analogy. He made an advertisement of missing a dog. He does not expect the police and the people attempting to find his dog will write him a note to accept the offer. He expects them to find the dog and reward the person accordingly. So that's the reasoning behind all the Carlyle and Carbolic Smoke Ball Company case.
I think I would like to answer that question. So based on my readings and analysis, I would say that there's an offer being made by the defendant. If you read the case, the defendant said that the advertisement was merely for the sole purpose of marketing and sales growth. Hence, there was no binding contract between them and the plaintiff. However, the court held that the offer made in the newspaper was established, mixed with the performance by the plaintiff with specified conditions, and also supported by considerations that the defendant will pay £100 as mentioned in the advertisement. It is clear that no matter how the statement in the newspaper was scrutinized, there was indeed an offer made by the defendant. The next question is about acceptance. To answer that question, I think the defendant stated that and argue that there was no form of acceptance of offer between them and Mrs. Carlyle, as it is not promised. Even so, like I mentioned before, the act of performing the specific requirements and conditions in the advertisements shows that acceptance of the offer as being done by Mrs. Carlyle. I think that's all from me.
So, the Carlyle versus Carbolic Smoke Ball cases teaches vital lessons about advertising. Businesses must ensure their promotional language is clear, accurate, and aligned with their intent. Misleading or vague promises like offering monetary rewards without clear conditions can create legally binding obligations. Carlyle shows the importance of transparency in advertisement, include straightforward terms, disclaimers to avoid dispute while maintaining consumers' trust. Safeguards like cash incentives can build credibility, but at the same time, be carefully to prevent legal risks.
Is there any consideration between both parties?
Okay, so let me explain. There's a consideration. The Carlyle versus Carbolic Smoke Ball case had a clear example of valid consideration, which is essential for a lawful contract. For Mrs. Carlyle, her consideration was using the smoke ball according to the company's advertised terms, This required her time, effort, and also compliance. For the company, the benefit was consumer trust and increased sales due to the confidence inspired by the advertised promise. This mutual exchange highlights the value of consideration in forming enforceable contracts.
So do you guys wonder, like, can this case, the advertisement itself, can be considered as an ITT? You know, invitation to trade.
Okay, let me answer that question. Regarding the ITT, which is invitation to trade, it's a legal term that refers to an indication that a person is willing to negotiate the term of a contract, but not making an offer. It is a statement or action that invites others to make an offer. An invitation to trade differs from an offer because in the case of an offer, the offerer is prepared to be bound by the term immediately upon acceptance. However, with an invitation to trade, no binding contract exists until an offer is made and accepted. Common example of an invitation to trade are goods displayed in a store, advertisement, and tenders or auctions. The distinction between an offer and an invitation to trade is important in contract law because it helps determine when an actual agreement has been formed. In the case of Carlyle versus Carbolic Small Ball Company, the court held that the advertisement was an offer, not an invitation to trade, and that a contract was formed when Mr. Carlyle fulfilled the terms of the offer. This case is a significant illustration of how the distinction between an invitation to trade and offer can affect a formation of a contract. Are there any lessons business nowadays can take from the case?
So, I know what you're thinking about on how to prevent from the Carlyle versus Carbolic Small Ball case from repeating again, right? So, there's an act called Trade Description Act 2011. That is Malaysian law that aims to protect consumers from false or misleading business claims about products and services. To ensure our viewers understand it more, let's connect the Carlyle versus Carbolic Small Ball case with Malaysia's halal meat cartel scandal in 2020. In both cases, consumers relied on promises. Mrs. Carlyle trusted the flu prevention claim, while Malaysian consumers trusted the halal certifications. In the meat scandal, companies falsely labeled non-halal meat as halal certified, violating the Trade Description Act 2011. Like Carlyle, this shows how misleading claims can lead to legal liabilities and consumer distrust.
So I just talked about the ITT, and then now I want to add some more about the Islamic perspective on a unilateral offer. So basically the definition of unilateral offer is a promise made by one party, which is the offerer, to undertake an obligation or provide a benefit. So the offer later will become binding when the condition or act stipulated by the offerer is fulfilled by another party. So for instance, we can say in the case of someone when they are offering a reward for finding a lost item, another example is promising to donate a certain amount if a specific condition is made. Okay, now we move on to the Islamic perspective. So there are 2 points that I can share. First is the permissible of unilateral contract, which is unilateral offer are permissible in Islamic law, provided they adhere to the principle of halal, which is lawfulness, and avoid haram, which is prohibited element. For instance, the subject matter of the offer must be lawful. Okay. Secondly is the avoidance of gharar, which is uncertainty. The term and condition of the offer must be clear and specific, that there should be no ambiguity about what constitutes the fulfillment of the condition. So there are certain examples of unilateral offer in Islamic law, for instance, reward offer, conditional charity or wakaf. And lastly, kafala, which is what we can say guaranteed. So in conclusion, in Islamic law, unilateral offer are valid and permissible as long as they adhere to the principles of fairness, clarity and also Sharia compliance. They promote trust and ethical dealings while ensuring obligations and honor. The focus on sincerity and mutual benefit aligns unilateral offer with the broader objectives of Sharia, which is Maqasid Sharia, which aim to preserve justice, trust and also social harmony.
Alright, so what a very interesting video, very insightful, our conversation here right now, right? Alright, so I think you guys can stay tuned and see you in the next episode of Secakit Boba. Bye bye.